GM. GM. So today is the 29th or the 28th. Did I get it wrong? 28th, Thursday. Um, Start off with daily levels looking at Bitcoin and Bitcoin dominance, something that hasn't been looked at for quite a while here. Starting to lose the trend. This is the first real weakness all year. It's the first time really that it's made uh, any kind of reversal pattern or just signs of reversal, right? So all year it has trended up quite consistently. Now we're seeing obviously the weekly trend bands are being lost. Dominance tried to make a new push, got rejected back inside, and we've just had straight decrease in dominance for 3-4 weeks now. It's a sign, obviously, that Bitcoin is less in favor and people are chasing it to alts. That's also a shift that's, once this happens, that's it, right? It doesn't really fake out, if that makes sense. You're not really going to see like false moves on Bitcoin dominance. This is more just a sign right now that we've gone full bull again in the eyes of people, and so the market is going to just trend towards lower Bitcoin dominance, and that's probably going to go now until. I mean, there'll probably be a spike around the ETF approval. So what you need to be watching is, does this possibly reverse here? Does it but it seems to be just the first time that we've had real sustained weakness in Bitcoin versus alts. So the question is really, it's not will Bitcoin bounce or rally or whatever. That doesn't really have anything to do with it. Bitcoin dominance isn't just about it has nothing to do with the dollar values, right? So Bitcoin can go higher. I think Bitcoin goes a lot higher. I think alts probably are set to underperform a little bit, but I think Ethereum is going to continue rising, and so if Ethereum keeps performing, that's the biggest weighting in the Bitcoin dominance measure, right? Because obviously ETH's the second biggest, so it'd be interesting to see what happens from here. I'm of the opinion that the market is going to shift back towards Bitcoin and Ethereum, and because we've gone through kind of almost an entire rotation of shit, right? So we had like Solana running first, which was the biggest altcoin outside of ETH, and you rotated all the way down through Solana shitcoins and Avalanche, and Cardano was running, and down and down and down and down. And there's still obviously some shitcoins pumping, but we had quite a lengthy, really, like you can see it here on the dominance. We've had really 4 weeks, 1, 2, 3, and we're in our fourth week of consistent alt outperformance. That's what would happen when you see Bitcoin dominance dropping like that. You've had total 3 with 4 really strong weeks, and we're getting towards January. So I think total 2 is going to start really ripping as Ethereum begins to build up its momentum, and it'd be interesting to see now ETH versus the total cap as an interesting ETH versus total 3 as a bit of a comparison. Because this was like ETH was getting really hammered by total 3 for most of the year. And you can see it here in particular. Drag this up, drag this down. And here sort of on the lower time frames. All right, there you go. Total 3 has just been going higher and higher and higher, and is starting to kind of round out, lose a little bit of momentum, needs to go probably sideways or pull back a bit. And Ethereum's, finally starting to get itself in shape for a move. So, like I'd said, before, Bitcoin and Ethereum have one more day, right? Because it's after Friday that the final options expiry of the year comes through, and that's at 8 a.m. So it's less than 24 hours now until OPEX, which has got the Bitcoin and Ethereum with their Ethereum's 2300, 2500 as the two levels. Bitcoin's is 40 and 45k. So I'm considering swapping a bunch of alts back into Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then just focusing on those two with some added trades on top whenever there's dips. But I just get the sense now alts have made big runs, right? Alts have had pretty good returns. Everything I hold is up basically. Pepe is up slightly. It's probably the most laggard of anything I've been holding, but everything else is up, apart from some of the real low cap stuff, which is just more speculative. So alts have done really well, and if we're going to get continuation, it's going to come back to the majors. They're going to run, then we're going to have alts go again. But in that time, we can see a pullback, and alts will really get destroyed on this pullback. So it's a bit. I think ETH is a pretty obvious bet here. I think there's going to be another pullback. I think Total 3 is going to pull back and just nuke straight down to this level, just in one go, before anyone gets a chance to even react, and then it'll rip higher because there's a lot of leverage built up, and in this move, if this happens, all the value will flow back to Bitcoin and ETH, in my opinion. And so if Total 3 did that, I would see ETH, doing this, dropping back below 2300, maybe just after the OPEX, and then away ETH goes. And BTC might take out this low or come back towards that 40k area, right? You might see BTC just touching that off, and then again, it's going to go into its ETF. I just don't see a way. So let me put it this way. As soon as we get past like the 1st of January, everyone's eyes are going to be on Bitcoin and Ethereum, because Ethereum's already building up momentum, right? ETH BTC. So Ethereum is now building up its first real, it's the first time it's built some real momentum. This was like a single pump, right? Which was big, inefficient pump and reverse. This is now like a move off the lows, 5-day consolidation, second move. This is the most momentum it's had since April, really, right? It hasn't made any higher highs here or anywhere. So it's actually starting to form still the beginnings, but it is forming a bottom. And so I struggle to see how alts keep outperforming whenever we get into January and there's just this massive shift of focus back towards Bitcoin, because it's just going to be all articles about Bitcoin, ETF this, ETF that, and then obviously Ethereum with its upgrade coming, plus the Ethereum ETFs, which are being talked about too. It's set up for alts to really underperform. And so I'm looking more at relative performance and thinking, when I say alts underperform, I don't mean every alt, but I mean, what happens if we have a dip, right? And so as I look at it here, I look at Total 3 and I think, okay, this is up significantly on the lower time frames. If it has a dip, a pull back, which when you look at the data is very possible, right? The fuel is there. Ethereum's now the leading coin here, which is adding more fucking credibility to a pullback. Global funding rate, global OI, and we'll just take a look here. We'll remove Bitcoin and Ethereum. And we'll just look at alts, right? And you can see here, funding rate is up and is at like extremes and has just been rising all the way since October. This is for alts, and funding is up only, right? Which again is fine as long as alts are in favor. But I don't see how alts remain in favor in the first week or two of January because there's just so much focus going to be on Bitcoin and ETH. So I'm going to reduce some of my altcoin exposure. Things like Pepe coins take some profit. Things like Multibit take some profit. And ID, the DWF coin I had, I'm just going to cut that totally because it's moving too slow. So I'm going to sell all my ID. It didn't have much. It's just a smaller position, obviously. And move that into Ether BTC. Same with Multibit, same with Pepe coin. Now, with both of those, I'm not selling all of them, right? I'll only sell whatever. A portion of them, I don't know yet, right? But I will scale out of them this today to move into BTC and ETH. I'm not going into cash. I don't see the reason to go into cash. I think Bitcoin or ETH is still the best bet right now. And then if we get this altcoin shakeout that I'm expecting, 10% for the total three or whatever, which maybe it doesn't happen, but if we do, right, then after that, and hopefully it's at the early stage of January, then you can look at rotating back into alts. The thing is, for me, I'm at this point now where I feel like there's a shakeout coming at some point in the next week or so, right? I don't know when exactly, but the setup is there. I don't want to be in cash because everything's going to go higher, in my opinion. But if we get that pullback, alts will get wrecked more than BTC and ETH. So that's like my logic. Go back to the kings, Bitcoin. Go back to the whatever, the queen, Ethereum. It's more like the fucking red-headed stepchild, but go back to Bitcoin, bit in ETH, minimal alt exposure. And then if we get this dip, that's going to be looking at to add some alt exposure back in once there's been a flush. And once I think that there's, room for alts to go again. But I slept on it. I was thinking this last night. And the more I think about it, the more I think about attention. And the attention of the market is limited. And we've had this nice little period, right? So if you think of December, we had do you remember I talked about there was a window where they could have approved Bitcoin ETFs in November, right? That little window where they might have, it was just hype, right? And then we had a rally in Bitcoin to start December, and then Bitcoin has been really good. It has consolidated for all of December. That is now 2-3 weeks where people have had their fun on alts. That fun is ending, in my opinion. So either it's all over and we nuke, or it rotates back to Bitcoin and ETH, which that's what I think's happening. I don't think it's all over. I think we're far from over. I think people are going to be surprised by how far we actually go. But I think next is probably a big ETH run and Bitcoin having probably a big pump on the ETF approval. So within that frame of the next 2 weeks, whatever, they're the only logical bets I can see. I still hold Pepe, the other Pepe, right? I'm still holding that as kind of ETH beta, and it's a meme. And January, I think, will be good for the Pepe meme. But I wouldn't buy more alts necessarily right now, at least for me. I'm just going to focus on the top two. And then here's the other thing. You want to scalp or day trade the beta, right? So stuff like Lido and stuff like Link. If you're wanting to short-term trade them, you can get some good impulses off them. But I think if you zoomed out, I think ETH's going to outperform all of them. I think ETH, a lot of people are going to, and I like Lido, Link, Frax, a lot of these projects, they're ETH related and they're high beta to ETH. I think a lot of people though are just piling into the beta and missing the fact that ETH is ready for a big run. And also ETH is less risky. So if you do actually follow into ETH and we do get a correction, your ETH will dip less and those alts might get wrecked. So from a risk perspective and a reward perspective, I think it's skewed towards ETH here rather than Arbitrum, Optimism, Link. A lot of people will over allocate into beta when it's actually, when ETH runs, it sucks all the attention away from ETH coins. Right? If you've ever witnessed a proper ETH rally, ETH is the second biggest, right? So it takes away a lot of the attention from the market. And I think that's what's lining up. So I just want to kind of reallocate back into Bitcoin and ETH with a more heavy weighting. That's what I'm going to do. So out of my portfolio, I'll probably be, my AKT I won't touch. That's separate. It's totally separate. I think AKT's chart is amazing. But everything else, I'll probably go like 80%, 90% BTC and ETH for the next week or two, with a view then to flipping back into alts whenever the time comes. So that's what I'm thinking. And I'm expecting something like this. Obviously, you can't tell or can't time any altcoin corrections or anything like that. And I've been the first person to say this is not a bearish chart. I don't think altcoins are going to nuke. I think that any dip will get bought. I think they go much higher. But I also just can't see how alts outperform Bitcoin and ETH in the first 2 weeks of January. Right? So that's my approach. Back to the majors. See how we go. GM.